All right, hey y'all, welcome on in to another SciAnts IRL. We're hunting for some dinosaur statues today, which allegedly are in this state park / camping area. It's a beautiful day.
So y'all, first of all, welcome the heck on in. I'm happy to be here. I just wanted to point out, I was admiring the pitch pine right at the car entrance. We are walking through the Pine Barrens. But if
What
you
does mean Pine Barren?
It's a classification of ecosystems. So Pine Barrens is usually dominated by pine trees, usually like pitch pine is the pioneer and dominant species. And
does that look any different from like a regular pine?
I will show them to you. You will recognize them, but
I just don't even know what it looks like.
The Pine Barrens are kind of defined by really low quality soil, sandy, acidic soil.
Oh, well, there we go.
Low nutrient, and the water is also acidic. The water that runs through it is also acidic and low nutrient. So all of the animal and plant species are very well adapted to this dry and low nutrient environment.
Yeah, yikes, that is super sandy.
And it's also usually reliant on periodic fires. And this is what I'm observing. So I was excited to talk to you guys about all of the different pine varieties, especially the pitch pine, and maybe do some pine identification. But if you look, Balint, can you show the party people the canopy that we have above us? Yeah. I think you might notice that there are very few frickin' pine trees. Most of this is oak. Most of this is oak. And so what's happened is I didn't know this was going to be the case for this particular area, but when you suppress fires, the pine trees, especially the pitch pine, start to not do well. So some of the pine cones are ceratinaceous, which means they require heat to open. So that will reduce there's not that many pine cones opening.
Also, it's just the cool species of moss. Sorry, y'all. I was like, whoa, look at this moss.
But oak there are like 3 really common species of oak that are found in the Pine Barrens, but they're very much secondary species.
Except here.
Here, because they outcompete, when there's not fire, they outcompete the pine. So the pine is perfectly adapted to this ecosystem, but part of it requires, so it can handle drought, it can handle incredibly acidic soils and water. It can handle so many things. It just can't handle competition. So it's very resistant to fire. And its seeds kind of require fire to thrive.
You said like the pine cones to open?
So it's really weird. Some of the pine cones, it will be on the same tree. Some of them open seasonally and some of them are ceratinaceous. Some of them require fire. But they won't seed well, like they won't plant well and thrive if there hasn't been a recent fire. They will be outcompeted by the oak. Huh. And so when we suppress fire in these areas, we end up having really dramatic shifts in ecosystem like this, like you guys are seeing. So I'm hoping we're going to find some pines, because I'd love to talk to you guys about them and maybe do some pine identification, especially because they're such an important part of this particular ecosystem. But I guess this at least goes to show us, we can greatly modify ecosystem. Also, the ecosystem is also really well known for shrubby stuff. These things, I think this is mountain laurel right here, but it's everywhere.
This is mountain laurel?
Yeah, and so it grows lower. The pine trees are forming the canopy typically, and then we have shrubs like this that spring up after a fire, do their thing, and then they'll periodically get sort of beaten back again with fires that are supposed to, kind of cycle every 10 to 30 years historically, but we've been suppressing them now for long enough that we're starting to see some pretty dramatic changes in the ecosystem, like we're seeing here. So this is a beautiful walk, but I have to say I am disappointed. I was expecting the Pine Barrens. We might have to take you guys on a walk around my mom's house. She's right by a state forest, and that is proper Pine Barrens. We will see some proper pine trees. I've only seen right in the very entrance. We'll have to go back. Worst case scenario, guys, we'll all go back and look at admire the pine trees. I've seen one in the distance, but otherwise not seeing my lovely pine trees, y'all.
This park also allegedly has
What do you see, Munchie?
wooden statues of dinosaurs, which I saw the pictures of, y'all, but I'm like, no, we gotta come actually see if this is real.
Well, we're excited to check this out. Hon, you recognize this, right?
Holly?
Yes, y'all, it's holly, and we have some berries coming in. I am not a fan of holly. It is native to the area, not a fan.
You keep holly untrimmed, it becomes giant.
And it stabs you and makes you bleed. Its leaves are very aggressive. And I know everyone's like, oh, it has these lovely, I had this fight with my mom. She was like, she had these 2 big holly trees right outside her front door. And she was like, oh, but they're so lovely in the winter, and we have these bright red berries. Not worth it, chat. I'm telling you. And you need ones that don't produce the berries, because you need both male and female in order to get the berries. They do need to have fertilized.
Golganak was wondering, are there scheduled control burns in the area?
There are some.
And
it's getting more
would that help
common.
diversify the ecosystem?
It would definitely help the ecosystem. They are improving on that. There are also recently, my mom lives in the Pine Barrens, and her area has been subjected to a few uncontrolled, as is known to happen when an ecosystem relies on fires, periodic low-level fires, and it doesn't get any. And you'll see it too. You'll be driving by and the forest will look fine, but you can see because the trees are resistant to fire, but the trunks are just completely black. We're not in the pine plains where things actually grow sort of dwarf-like. It's actually hard. I know you can identify the pines by the bark, but it is easier when I can see pine cones and the actual pine needles. So we are in a stand of pines, which is nice. They are very tall pines. So these do not look like pitch pine to me. The needles look too small, but yeah, and the bark is quite different. So you guys can see this area is pretty clear of underbrush. The canopy is pretty dark and, pretty substantial. I mean, we do have a few smaller, like mountain laurel type things growing, but it is pretty clear. But there's a thick layer of pine needles.
Yeah.
And so those pine needles, that thick layer of pine needles would be gone if a brief fire ran through here. And you can see we have a lot of acorns and other things on the ground. They do better in when they have, a couple inches of this padding. And the pines, especially the pitch pine, do better when it is just absolute barren ash and sand. That's why, again, they need these periodic fires to really get a good stand of pines going.
Oh, could you comment, Lita, on just the structure of the forest? It almost looks, in terms of how it's laid out, intentional. There's rows of how it looks. Why does it look so structured, do you think?
I think that's our eye playing tricks on us. There are times, so these areas have been logged. They used to be logged, and then they would be replanted. So if you are walking through an area that might look like uncultivated forest now, but everything is in a very neat, tidy row, that is most likely the result of human intervention. I think this is just a normal structure that you would see, and our eyes are very good at picking out rows. Although there are a few that do look like they could be rows. I think that's just our eyes playing tricks on us more than anything. This is what people were noticing. This, I imagine, must have been a human intervention.
Ooh, look at that, y'all. That's
Many
a nice
of
shot.
these trees are of the same age. You can tell. I mean, there are a few dead ones that didn't continue to grow. This is a human intervention, but then if you look over to the left, that is just a sporadic, even if you're seeing to the left kind of patterns, that is, I would say, more of a natural pattern. I think that we've definitely gone the wrong way.
Oh.
I think we just go back.
Let's keep on keeping on, chat.
I thought, do we not want to track back and then start over?
I mean, that probably makes more sense, but I was just like, I don't know, we can go this way. So hopefully, maybe it'll be around here somewhere. There is someone walking not too far away from us. I wonder if we could just ask them to
We found a few stands that that seem to have been probably planted by humans. They're just too straight, and it's also the age of the trees is too similar. So we've passed a couple of areas where that is the case. But especially in pine stands, especially where you don't have all of the sort of chaos of the lower canopy, everything's been cleared out, your eyes can pick up patterns that are otherwise not there. But we've passed a few places that are just too suspiciously ordered. And again, you can tell if the age of the trees is all incredibly similar as well. That's a good indication that there's been some kind of intervention. But again, these are fire-prone areas, so it does also happen that you'll have a stand of pines that are all of a similar age, but that you would get that plus very clearly lined.
And we've been looking at the maps provided by the park systems, and there's been nothing here. And now all of a sudden I looked on Pokemon Go, and Pokemon Go claims that I'm at a T-Rex sculpture right now, and I'm questioning whether or not we are. Inside right there, that's where a dino statue should be. So I don't see any dino statue in here. And here's what it's supposed to look like, right? There's the Triceratops, and that's not what we're seeing at all. Y'all, I wonder if this is one of the statues here. Per Pokemon Go's map, this is it. But it 100% doesn't feel right. So here, this is what it looks like, and then here are the remains of it. That's the T-Rex statue, and I think it's that right there. I am so sorry, y'all. Well, we found the remnants. I guess we found the bones. That doesn't make us. It makes us like tree archaeologists, right? Yeah. They were destroyed by vandals. Yeah. So apparently it was suspended with trees from twine. The sculptures were then cut down and piles in the ground permanently remained. Well, that's too bad, y'all. I'm glad we checked Pokemon Go, because otherwise we would not have found the remnants of these. And we can think about the beauty that once was. Y'all.
Okay, so here, y'all. This is a little bit more of what I expect when I'm going for a stroll into the Pine Barren. I have to take a really close look, but the majority of these are pitch pine. Okay, and we're gonna get a look at some up close here. I was looking at some here. So pitch pine tends to be a little bit more gnarled. They can have like multiple trunks just because they're very resilient. So they'll tend to take really odd shapes, and they can grow very tall, but because they're so resilient, they tend to live in windy places. The wind will make them dwarf. So genetically, they're not really different, but you'll have whole stands of dwarf pitch pine. And so we have Okay, so how do I know this is pitch pine? Partly just by looking at the trunk of this tree. It looks a little bit crazy. But then pitch pine is really the only predominant pine in the Pine Barrens that has needles that grow, that grows in clusters of 3. They also tend to kind of twist around each other. The pine needles tend to twist around each other a little bit more. I'm seeing some, as opposed to being sort of like long and fluffy. Okay, and then also we have some male cones right here. These have not opened yet. So pine trees do need to fertilize. They don't create fruit and flowers, but they have pine cones. And they have, instead of having a male tree and a female tree, they actually have male cones and female cones. The female cones tend to be the ones way up at the top of the tree. I'd love to get a closer look at them, but this is a big tree, so they're gonna be quite out of reach. And the male cones tend to be on the bottom, and they're the ones that are gonna produce the pollen. And the thought of this is the females are the seeds that hold the females are the cones that hold seeds that need to be fertilized. And if you're a tree, it is better to not self-fertilize. So by not having the male cones directly on top of the female cones, they're more likely to get a better wind dispersal pollination. And so this is a male cone. They tend to pitch also are known to have these really spiky cones. They look interesting, but these are immature male cones, but they have a slightly different shape than female cones. Female cones tend to be a little bit more like egg-shaped, I would say. And so like I was saying about these cones, they look really spiky. I think they look beautiful. Let's see, there we go. Look at how spiky that is. These ones have opened. I think they're super lovely. But each tree will sort of be a variety. It will open seasonally. The cones will drop and open seasonally, but it will also hold on to some waiting for fire. So those are called serotinicious. And it's kind of unusual in a plant to have these multiple strategies. But the pitch pine is extraordinarily resilient, as we've discussed at length. Munchkin's tumbling a little bit. However, it can't handle competition. It needs fire, and so that's why we have sort of an oak stand that we walked through rather than actual true pine barrens. But there we have it.
All right, so thank y'all for joining us today. I'm sorry we couldn't find the dinosaurs. We ended up just finding the remains of the dinosaurs, which, again, unfortunately, nothing we can do about that, but hopefully next time we will not have dinosaur remains. We'll have an actual dinosaur to show y'all. So I think it was a nice walkthrough. Have a great evening, great time zone, wherever y'all may be.